Where's your cruise? Good go. All set. Okay. Good evening. My name is Councilwoman Helen Anthony, and I am calling the Committee on Finance to order regular meeting on Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. And would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Helen Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman Juan Pichardo,
Present.
Councilman James Taylor,
Yeah.
Councilor Sue Engelbart,
Present.
Councilor Miguel Sanchez.
Present.
We have 5 present, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to welcome Councilor Shelley Peterson, who's joining us. And also, of course, thanking Julie Polanco and Donna Collegian, and also we have City Solicitor and Cheverly joining us this evening. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you everyone in the audience. So first, I would like to rearrange our agenda a little bit. I would like to take agenda number 1 and move it to the end of the meeting. Do I need a motion on that?
Yes,
Okay.
take it out of order.
I'd like to take it out of order so that we can allow Councilor Weiss to attend his DPW meeting. So I'd like to- Second. All right, motion made by Councilor Pichardo, seconded by Councilor Randall. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So, Madam Clerk, please read agenda item number 2.
Item number 2, resolution authorizing approval of the following contract award by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 21-26B3. 50 Sims LLC Workforce Solutions, $284,685.50 for a 10 years lease with 2 5-year extension options.
Wonderful. And who do we have here to present? We have to please step forward and we'll swear you in.
No, that's all right, either side is fine, just raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And please state your name for that.
My name is Stephen Boyle. I am the Executive Director of Workforce Solutions.
You have the floor.
Okay, just to give you a little bit of background.
And please have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. You don't have to stand.
That's all. Just to give you a little background, Workforce Solutions is a federally funded program that we've been running for many years at One Reservoir Avenue in the Reservoir Triangle right now. So it is all federally funded. We do training of many different occupations. So we pay for the training for their programs, but people come in and use our services. They come in and use a resource room, which is full of computers. They do job searches. We offer resume development, dress for success seminars, and we do a lot of other job fairs actually on site, in addition to doing bigger job fairs at the Roger Williams Casino. So it is, and the thing about, talk about moving this location, it's really called the American Job Center now. And what that is encompassing is basically 14 members that belong as part of an American Job Center. So it's not just the actual Department of Workforce Solutions being moved. We're moving DLT. We have maturity works that addresses anyone 55 and above job skills that they come back into the workplace. We have the Comprehensive Community Action Program out of Cranston who takes a seat. Office of Rehabilitative Services is there. We also have the TANF population that we serve as well through a company called Equus, Job Corps there. And obviously Workforce Solutions there, we have 8 seats. But DLT has a big presence there because of the number of services they provide under what we call WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. So they provide, so they have 14 seats. So when we look at a move of this magnitude, it's not just a department, it's actually a whole delivery service system that we're bringing in for workforce development. Unfortunately, we rented from DLT for many, many years, and they've decided not to renew the lease, which forced us to go out and look for a new location. We've gone out to RFP twice. And the last time we went on RFP, first time the properties didn't have enough parking, they weren't in a suitable location. It wasn't easy to get to for us. So So we went out again, and we only had one bidder, and that was 50 cents. That bid on that, at that point. So we're looking to rent the first 2 floors of that facility. And I think it's important for the committee to understand, because this is going to be the first time that we're actually going to see the creation of a workforce development hub. There are other entities that are going to be inside Sims, such as the Jane Addams Resource Center, which is a CNC machinist training through Polaris MEP. They're already there. We have the Providence Preservation Society inside doing window restoration, and they're going to expand it to masonry as well. And I just found out, we did a walkthrough the other day, and we found out that Nicholson File Arts is just moved into that building as well. So once we get to move there, once we get the approval, we will have actually we will inhabit the first 2 floors, and we will have other workforce partners in there as well. So to us, it's a great opportunity as far as that goes. So.
And would you mind just talking to us about the, is this the 284, 685, 50? That's it says for a 10-year lease, but I'm assuming that's not for the 10 years. That's a 1 year.
Yeah, it's 1 year.
Yeah,
It's 1
okay.
year.
And so it's a 10-year lease with 2 5-year extensions.
Right.
That's the base rent, and then is there an
Yeah,
increase?
utilities and other things on top of that.
Okay. And then-
Again, it's all federally funded through the Yellow grant. It doesn't come out of city funds.
It doesn't?
No.
Okay,
Not at all. All of that expense in the building. And we offset that expense because all these people that are coming with us, we charge them what they call seat costs. So for DLT to sit there, we have an infrastructure budget, so we go through all of our expenses and we create an infrastructure budget. And then what we do is we do an individual seat cost. So to have a cubicle there or to have an office there, you actually help us offset that rental expense as well.
and parking over there, do you have sufficient parking?
Parking is great. There's plenty of parking in the back of the building. There's plenty of on-street parking. There's no meters on Sims right now, so there's walk. We also have parking right out in front, but we're going to leave that front parking outside of the vestibule for customers at that point. But there is plenty of parking in the back of the building for the employees to park.
And how much space I'm sorry, just interest, how many space at 50 cents are you taking? Are you taking half the space, or what's the percentage of the whole space?
We're not a big part of the whole building, is because it was a big manufacturing building at that point. So what they did is they had, I'm not sure the previous partner, I think it was Unifor, I think it was in there before. So we're taking the first 2 floors. So particularly on the first floor will be customer facing services. So people are going to be able to get in there at that point, and then administrative and any other co-located partners that we have will be at the 2nd floor. So it's about 9,900 square feet.
And then will the rent escalate by a certain percentage every year during the 10
We
years?
hope not. No, we keep,
3%.
yeah, it's usually on a 3% increase.
Increase, okay. Okay, committee members, questions? Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, Mr. Boyle, for this presentation. To be honest, I'm not too familiar with workforce solutions. My just general questions is like, how many folks are through the program, and just in terms of like, what is your like government style? Or you guys have like a board, or is it just?
We have a board. So there is what we are, Workforce Solutions is the administrative entity that gets appointed by the mayor. The mayor is technically the CEO overseeing the operation. So we're appointed as the administrative entity to run the day-to-day operation at that point. And like I said, it's a conglomerate of partners that deliver workforce services. So anybody can walk in there and get any type of service that they need, right from resume development to job search, counseling. And many times we serve the hardest hit communities. And so they're usually on the lower income side, usually on the lower educational side. And we have to upskill those people. So we have to go through the testing, screen them, do an assessment, and get them into some jobs and training that we do. We do a lot of CDL training, a lot of CNA training, So we're actually the funding for the training provider at that point. So we, and like I said, it's hundreds of people a month that come through there. We also are co-located right now with DHS. That will not come with us. So, but we have about anywhere from 4,500 to 6,000 people walking through that door every day. So it gives us a lot of great opportunity, and we'll continue to partner with them. They just won't be co-located with us. From what we understand, they're going to take over One Reservoir Avenue at that point. So it will be a great help for them as well. But this gives us an opportunity. So I know you're probably not totally familiar with us, but we help people get jobs.
Yeah.
We help people bring up their skills, and we help them actually create better lives. I mean, we're taking people that are formerly incarcerated, we're putting them into CDL program, where they wouldn't have had that opportunity before. Just again, with the CNAs, nursing assistants, anybody on cosmetology is on there. There's a provider list that we fund offer from the state. So it's a pretty wide range of services that we can do. And again, we're serving the people that have the hardest and most barriers to employment. That's really our mission. We have a priority of service to handle the people with the biggest barriers to employment. The priority of service is veterans. We work closely with the veterans. They come along with the DOT. So moving over to SIMS is actually going to put us closer, not so much from a workforce development standpoint, but the Veterans Administration is right down in Eagle Park.
Right.
And they also do the physical therapy and vision there as well. So we're pretty excited to be closer to that too. But those are the populations that we serve. And like I said, we serve Providence mostly, then Cranston, and then it extends from there. We go to people, anybody can walk into the center and get service. There's no saying it's just Providence or Cranston. So what happens is that we get people right after that from Pawtucket, Central Falls, Johnston. Believe it or not, the biggest one that pops up after those is Warwick, believe it or not. They're actually located closer to the West Warwick branch, but they happen to come in and get services from us. So we serve everybody that walks in, and regardless of, but they have to be on the lower income side, and we have to bring them up. And a lot of times we're working very closely with the Providence Public Library, it's GED training. CAP agencies, we don't handle walk-in business and that, but we're also involved with we have the youth provider system that goes and we put the youth to work, we get them to work experience as far as that goes also. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's super informative. Just my last question, you touched on it a little bit. Can you explain like what the partnership between Providence and Cranston is?
Yeah, it's a consortium agreement that exists. It's a consortium agreement that exists between the two cities, that they work cooperatively together. When it was first formed, it was formed under Macy Anthony and Mayor Dupree in Cranston. So this goes back as a long-term relationship that we've had. And what happens is, previously you need populations to be co-located next to each other. You don't need that anymore. So we are looking to go into other areas to partner. We've had initial conversations like with Pawtucket and Central Falls, maybe to expand an urban footprint of the operation. But so that's how it happened. We needed the partnership to form a job development situation. And we actually have two of our counselors there are actually go through the city of Cranston as far as that goes. So
Thank you.
I
Super
grew up in
informative.
Cranston, so I had near and dear to my heart on top of it. So
Thanks, sir.
thank you.
Councilor Pachado, is your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The workforce is currently still operating on Reservoir Avenue.
Yeah.
So, I live right by Councilman, that's a Councilman Taylor's area. Just a question in terms of the partnership with Cranston, is no longer in place, or is still in place?
No, it's still in place.
So you're gonna add more partnerships,
We'd like to
more cities?
possibly look at that. What happens is you have Providence and Cranston, and then you have what they call a balanced estate. So you only have two other job centers, one in Woonsocket, one in West Warwick, serving 37 cities and towns. So we've had initial discussions with DOT. They said they wouldn't mind if we had some initial discussions with some cities and towns, but we were looking at the cities and towns that would be closest in makeup to what we are and how we were going to serve those communities. as well, Pawtucket, and this was even suggestion from Matt Wellman to take a look at Pawtucket, take a look at, Central Falls, as an overlap at that point. So I think, it's a little bit down the road. I think the move will help us do that and centrally located at that point. No, we still have a relationship with Cranston. In fact, we met with Mayor Hopkins just the other day to take a look at the property and get its input.
And did I hear right that DHS will remain on Reservoir Avenue? Is that their plan?
As far as I know, as far as I know, they're negotiating at least with the state if they haven't already. I'm not sure.
So they're not, okay, they're not going with you.
They're not-
Part of it. And the youth component is also not going with you also? The
It never did. It was always done through providers. Our
Right.
biggest
Right.
provider is Community Action Program in Cranston. But we also partnered with Foster Forward, and we did one cohort with Providence Housing Authority as far as that goes. And we will be going back out to RFP again for that youth thing. So we're hoping to have some other people at the table, but that's all done in agreement with a provider. So there's not walk-in youth business. However, CCAP does take a seat with us and waits on people in the center itself. So.
So one of the unique things about having it there, and that I witnessed and also lived through these past 20 years, is that transportation is very convenient for people, right, in the parking. Currently, I believe, it's a Pelino that owns that property on Reservoir.
Yes, it is.
Can you just talk a little bit about the transportation, how people are going to get to Sims? Is there any
Yeah,
movement on that?
It is there. It's a little bit further away than what we have right now. One of the difficulties looking for commercial property, it's like the three bears. So, you get this, it's good, and this isn't bad, so there's a lot of trade-offs to that. But in looking at that, that's one of our missions, was to make sure people can get there. We're
Right.
very close to Route 10 at that point, obviously, but if you don't have a car, you can actually, the bus stop is right at the end of Batwells Avenue. So you go, it's literally almost at the end of Batwells Avenue, right around Harris, and then the first left is Sims at that point. Unless we petition, have adhesion for a new stop, but that's a busy area at that point, and it's not out of the realm of possibility to ask, but that is the closest bus stop that we can get at that point. And from what I understand, the city is also, and it's just the plans that I've heard in the past, is there will be a pedestrian walkover from the valley side over to where the farm fresh is located.
Yeah.
So they will have that, but transportation there was a factor in many of the places that, we didn't get a lot of responses even the first time around, but we couldn't even look at those places because people would never be able to access it. I mean, we have to serve those communities and we have to get them there. And in cases when we do on-the-job training grants for people, so if somebody's going to get a job, we can subsidize their wages up to 90% if they're 50 employers or below at that point. So we've gone past the old model of doing a bus pass. We've actually reimbursed the Uber at that point to get people back and forth. And we're trying to be more creative as far as that goes, not just a bus pass, because it doesn't always work. But that was the closest one we could get, Councilman, to do that. And it's literally right at the end of that Wells. You go around to Harris and back your first left, you're at Sims.
I'm sure that through your persuasiveness and the need, perhaps you could have with the kind of modified.
We're going to ask.
Right?
Yeah.
You certainly will have my support.
Thank you.
All right.
It's not a bad ask.
Yeah. And last one, in terms of the board, I see that the mayor also oversees the workforce, or
He makes the appointments, yes.
he makes the appointment. Is there for my information, is there a board member that's representing the city council or city council person in there? Do you know?
Not that I know. The board of directors is actually structured under the WIO regulation. And it has to be 51% business related at that point. And then you have subsets of that. There is a government component, and I don't know if the council would fit under that thing, but we have economic development directors participating on the board, and they have to be higher education, they have to be what they call WAC advisors for resident development services. So those categories have to get filled. If we don't, we're out of compliance at that point. But I don't know if a position like that would fall under what the government entity, usually it's fall into economic development directors to sit on the board. At that point.
Yeah, thank you.
No.
Thank you, sir, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Ramble.
Thank you. Thank you. This is so thorough. I'm sorry we're running so much. It's an interesting program. I just had a few quick questions. One is around, I was really excited about the types of people it sounds like you serve. How do you recruit? Do you rely on people hearing about you and coming to the facility, or are you out there like recruiting to bring people
We
in?
do our own social media. Some of that is going to be improved on that. We're looking at a website right now. Differences on pricing. So as far as that goes, but a lot of times we're doing interaction with like Amos House, Genesis Center, the homeless shelters as well, because there's still the population that we have to serve. So a lot of that recruitment is done through social media posts too. And we just signed up with corporate Twitter to have that go out there as well. But we do reach out to the social service agencies to have people come in there. As far as that goes, I mean, we've even gone out to the reentry program at the state prison, to sit down with them and say, how do we get this? And we're actually looking at a CDL program that comes out of Connecticut. What they do is they actually put non-internet programs in the prison, so they start doing the prep work prior to release, and so then they would be ready to go right to the yard at that point. So, but yeah, I mean, we do get walk-in customers as far as that goes, and like I said, they take advantage of a bank of computers that we have. They can do that. We also have a separate area for phones. I know everybody's got a cell phone today, but we have to have the hearing impaired phone is also in the building. So there's a bank of phones that anybody can then use at any time for job searches. But that is our core function.
Yeah.
There is a policy called priority of service, and services to service the lower income, lower educated population, and then, but the veterans jump ahead of that, including their spouses as well. So those are the populations that we have to serve. And we have interaction with the veterans program. There's 2 or 3 people from DLT sitting in the center, and they will continue to sit in the center. So we have that interaction on that. I work closely with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Oscar and I have known each other for a long time. And, so we're going to be branching out, working in that Hispanic communities with our on-the-job training program. It really hasn't been utilized that much. And we get, it's a great program to subsidize, particularly coming off of the pandemic, where they're still hit pretty hard with expenses and we can subsidize 90% of that pay, up to $26,000 for 1,000 fully hours. So it's a program we need to branch out with.
And do you mainly operate Monday through Friday, or is it an all week?
It's Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Primarily in normal business hours at that point. One of the things that we have to look at, expansion of hours, maybe a Saturday or a night, when people are working a job and they want to get out. They might be underemployed and they want to come. They might be working a retail job and they really want to upskill and find out what's available. They actually sit down, they do what they call an individual training assessment. So when they meet with a counselor, they go right through the programs and they say, well, I might want to do this. Counsel will go through them and see if it's a good fit.
Yeah.
And see if it's really a career path that they're going to be able to maximize. And we have to do employee choice as far as that.
Yeah. Thank you. And the other reason I asked, besides how you answered about the times of use, because if you're relying on street parking, a lot of the businesses that exist there, you know this already, but Farm Fresh fills up that parking lot on Saturdays, and then Saturday nights, it's like pretty hopping there, so.
Yeah, my employees have gone down, I said, Steve, you can't get the other place on Saturday.
Yeah. So if you're relying on street
We're not
parking.
working on Saturday.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with Farm Fresh, I'm diabetic, and they keep sending me the flavor of one out of here, killing me.
Thank you so much.
Okay, any more questions? All right, with that, may I have a motion? Okay,
Okay.
is that a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
And second that motion.
Okay, so motion made by Councilor Pichardo, seconded by Councilor Taylor, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the explanation.
Thank you.
Very good today. Okay, Madam Clerk, could you read item number 3?
Item number 3, resolution authorizing approval of the following contract award by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 21-26B second, Asana INC Information Technology, $46,158.
Mrs. Silverio, would you like to take item 3 and 4 together or separately? Okay, we'll just do it separately then. If you would please be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. You swear in the penalty of perjury, this testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And state your name again for the record, please.
Jim Silveria, the Chief Information Officer and Director of the IT.
Thank you so much for coming this evening. And first, I'd just like to take a pause and thank Councilor Royce for joining us and Councilor Vargas for joining us. Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Silverio, you may please present.
So the first item we have is a request to purchase software licenses, hosting, and support from Asana. Asana is used throughout the city for project and task management. Currently have about 350 staff using it. It's been in place for a little more than 8 years now. It was originally purchased with approval for board contract for a 3-year contract, which was renewed again. And since then, we've been renewing these requests annually. Licenses.
Are there questions from committee members? Councilor Ingersoll.
Just a super quick question. Would there be like any sort of sorry, my brain was savings for us to do another 3-year contract, or like why year to year?
Oh, sorry. So my request to the board had been for 3 years of approval. Asana has set pricing, so we're currently paying $10.99 per user per month. That is their standard rate. They don't offer discount at our
Oh, they
level.
don't do the
So whether sorry, so that's the annual price.
Okay.
So I'm requesting pricing under the annual agreement for $10.99 per user per month for 350 licenses. That's actually a discount for the monthly rate, which is $13.49 per user per month. So if we do an annual contract, that's the most that they have, and that is their best price.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. We've been using it for 8 years. All the licenses are being used to the max.
So the number of users does fluctuate as people come and go from the city. We do keep pretty good tab on it. When people leave, we remove their access. Previously, we were up to 375. I can tell you back in 2020, we had 375 licenses, 21, 375, 2022, and 275. And the numbers have dropped over the past several months. So this year, we're requesting a little under 350 licenses. We're currently just under that.
And let's see, now we've been using it for years. Has the product improved? Or do they continue to improve it based on the needs of the city of Providence and its employees? Or is it just more because people are more familiar with it, they're used to just pretty much doing what they've been doing?
Well, so I'd say in 2 areas, the product has improved. First of all, our use of it has improved over time. As more people have adopted it, we built workflows in the system. So, for example, all new hires that go through the HR system, from the posting request to the IT request to actual fund placement and entering into our HR system. That entire workflow is built in the sun. So any department looking to fill a position, we follow the Asana workflow. Everybody who's involved sees where we are in that process, and works very well. There are other workflows with various departments that have been built over the years. So its use has really become more customized to what we do here in the city. It's very, very flexible. We can build surveys in it, we can build fillable forms, and then workflows, approvals, all of that is built into the product. over the years, they have also added additional features that we have taken advantage. So I'd say on both sides, the product has improved. And the use of it.
Any other questions, Counselor
Thank you,
Sanchez?
Chairwoman. Can you just give us a specific example of how this program works? The software, like say, is it like a director of parks, like gives this assignments, tasks to like her subordinates, like through there, or just like how?
Well, I can speak for my team. So I can see my own tasks, my own projects, the things that I create for my departments and projects that are added to from other departments. So for example, when we have onboarding for new employees, we receive an IT request form. Tells us your name, your department, your position, your start date. We'll create a SONA test, or my department will create a SONA test and below to the staff in IT, so that we have a computer ready for you, we have an account ready for you, any software licenses that you may need, access to our ERP system, whether you're working for finance or HR. Or we have requests for software, you might be in DPW or parks, you might need AutoCAD or GIS services. All of that becomes tasks within Asana. We send those out to people within the IT department that will sign those licenses. And we make sure on the day that we start, the city, we're able to set a time to meet with you. We have your computer all set up. Make sure you can log in, get to everything that you need to do. Get to your accounts, get to your email, get to your printers that you may need. And everything's working. So those are all tasks which we create on just a new employee coming in, and as the manager of the department, I can see those being checked off. Step one.
So, if you let me,
Yes,
Chairwoman,
yes.
so it sounds like there's a lot of communication that happens on the software, and it's good that we're moving on with times and helping systems run more efficiently. But my question is most likely for the city solicitor. Activity that happens on the software, is it operable?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, depending upon if there's a law component to it or if there's confidential information, I think generally it's all discoverable or approbable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, with that, may I have a motion?
Make the motion. I'll second. I'll second our motion to approve.
Okay, a motion is made by Councilor Edward, seconded by Councilor Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. And we're gonna have you sit right there in your seat, because I'm gonna have, Madam Clerk, please read item number 4.
Item number 4, resolution authorizing approval of the following contract award by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 2126B2, BSI Software Inc. Information Technology, $19,514.78.
Please proceed, Mr. Silverio.
All right, so this request is to purchase software licensing support from BSI for their tax factory product. BSI is Business Systems Incorporated. We use their product, Tax Factory, as part of our payroll process. So we have over 9,000 checks, 9,000 employees that we pay over the course of a month through the school department, Providence Water, City of Providence. Our retirees are paid through payroll system as well. Every one of us has some type of deductions for taxes, withholdings, FICA, federal state taxes. And this is the software that performs that calculation. So whether you live in Rhode Island or out of state, the software is a subscription service. It keeps up with the applicable tax rates and laws in both at the federal level and at every state and local entity. And when we run a payroll process, this is a parallel process to that, where depending on the location and the number of dependents that you have or exemptions, this is a system that calculates what exactly is taken out of your check. So It's an integral part of our payroll process. We use it with our Infor Lawson ERP system. That is what we use for payroll. Infor recommends ESI as the tax calculation software. That is the software that we purchased originally as part of the Infor Lawson bid. And that is what they recommend for payroll processing. They don't have their own service which does that. It was originally purchased through an RFP award that in November of 2001. That's how long we've been using. Or when we originally bid for the Lawson implementation. And we've been renewing it annually since then.
I see that a portion of this is for the support option. Portion of this.
Yes, so the annual license comes with support updates. So whether an entity is city or state, or whether there's federal rule change or a tax rate change during the year, these rates are continually updated over the course of each payroll. It may not change every payroll, but each payroll, we make a call out to the service and we get the most recent rates and calculations.
Okay, questions from committee members? We've done a very good job of explaining this. I'm gonna say.
I make a motion.
Happy to answer any other questions you have.
I'll second.
That's what it's about.
Okay, all right, we have a motion to approve made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Andrew. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please read item number 5.
Item number 5, certificates from city assessor number 64L and 64M, recommending same be severely canceled pursuant to the provisions of section 14 and 15 of the Title 44, Chapter 7 of the General Laws of Rhode Island as amended.
And I would imagine we want to take these together to discuss. Could you also read item number 6?
Sure. Item number 6, certificates from city assessor number 65M and 65O, recommending the same be canceled pursuant to the provisions of section 14 and 15 of the Title 44, Chapter 7 of the General Laws of Rhode Island as amended.
And do I need to make a motion to discuss these together and also
Yes, you
vote
can.
together?
Yes.
Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved, 5 and 6 together.
Second.
Okay, the motion made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Andrew. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And please state your name and for the record.
Michael Murphy, Deputy City Secretary.
Mr. Murphy, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you coming instead of our assessor tonight, so thank you and welcome. And please proceed.
So I'm here on behalf of the city assessor to ask you to process these certificates for you. The tax assessor's office throughout the year make various abatements, mostly due to homestead requests and other exemption requests. Other common abatements might be the reductions in value, whether it be from the first appeal or second appeal, and real estate and tangible property are covered by this. I'm just there to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Questions from committee members? Councilor Pichardo.
Not being too familiar with this, right?
Sure.
Can you just walk us through in the sense of what, at least what is it, 5 or 10 steps that, in a sense, someone applies for having this be removed from their,
It depends what they're applying for. It's a homestead exemption, they get a 45% discount on the taxes if they own occupied property. They are supposed to apply by March 15th. If they do, then it will be applied for the tax year. If they don't, it will be prorated. So say they come in April, they'll get the unoccupied rate from January to March, and April to December, it'll be the homestead. There's other exemptions, the elderly exemption, a lot of them are first appeal, second appeal. So after you get the tax bill, you have a time frame to appeal the value, the assessment on the property, and they submit significant supporting documentation through our online web portal. And one of our staff will review that and either approve it or deny it, if it approves that it was not to against it, so you have to vote as well. Or it goes to the board, if it was denied, and it's sent to the board, who approves it, that will be a second appeal, it's a PTAR. This particular appeal as well.
And I see a lot of the late filing or penalty, 10% penalty and stuff like that. I would say,
Right, so depending on when you apply for the, if you are late, if you're after that March 15th deadline, then you charge the 1% late filing fee per month. June, 6 months.
Okay, Counselor Anderson.
Thank you so much for this.
Sure.
Also, just since we're getting into these documents, could you walk us through the reason codes and what each one means? So CFA, I assume HSOO is the homestead exemption, but she just
Sure.
tells us the different codes mean. Oh, sorry.
So the 8 hours A-bar, I'm sure that's somewhat familiar with A-bar properties. The defense code is blind. BTAR, that's the second appeal process that we spoke of. C is just is created an error,
Oh,
and yeah. And C is pretty much the same thing. It's just a typo there. The other way. Exempt, FA is first appeal, HSOO, and said owner occupied. Exemption, and use mixed use, SS, DISP, so straight disabled, TS capitalization, and leave veterans.
thank you. That's really helpful.
Any other questions? Oh, Counselor Sanchez.
Does this happen once a year or quarterly or?
These are quarterly, there's 2 reports, one's for the first quarter of 2022, is one for the second quarter of 2022.
Thank you.
Hey, Counselor Anderson.
This is a really dumb question, so
No,
I'm
no.
sorry, but what's the difference between 64L, 64M, and then 65N, 65L?
Yeah, separate out between real estate or tangible property.
Okay.
And motor vehicle, even though you don't tax motor vehicle anymore, there might have been some previous issues that they came in with some kind of documentation. On the vehicle during that time, so that we could make the reduction.
Okay, thank you.
It's been very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we appreciate, I really do appreciate having the printout because it's very helpful. And, you know, even though it's a lot of paper.
There's a lot of paper.
And maybe we could submit it and not have to have all this paper printed, but it really is important for us to see the details and understand how it's done. Do I have any other questions? Okay. We have a motion. Okay, motion to approve. Second.
We're approving 5 and 6, right? We're approving 5 and 6.
Both 5 and 6, motion to approve 5 and 6.
motion to approve, to accept and approve 5 and 6.
Seconded by Councilor Sanchez. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm wondering if we can take up item number 1.
Item number 1, resolution calling on the Providence Public School Department to cease the service of providing crossing guard to private school in the city until all the public schools have been adequately staffed.
Who do we have here to present this evening?
I'm James Scott, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Wonderful.
And I'm Jason Manal, I'm the Director of Operations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to swear you in.
Please say your names. Please swear the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And state your names again.
Jason Manal, Director of Operations.
James Scott, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Scott, do you have a handout of your notes on this subject?
I did, I handed several copies to the clerk when I came in.
Okay, I'll have those marked. May I have a motion to mark them as exhibit 1?
I need a motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Anderson, seconded by Councilor Taylor, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion passes, and thank you so much for providing us with some notes. So I'm gonna I'll go ahead and have you present to us tonight. And of course, the reason we've asked you to come is we are seeking information on how the crossing guards for the public schools are, who hires them, who's responsible, how are they hired, do we have a sufficient number? So if you could just educate us on crossing guards, that would be very helpful.
Sure, I guess, Jay, jump in there if you'd like. About the information I provided you, the function of maintaining crossing guards came to PPSD somewhere between 2010, 2011. Neither Jay nor myself was able to pinpoint exact time. Prior to that, it had been under the public safety. The district maintains 88 crossing guard posts. Now, these posts are bid on at a shift bidding event, which occurs in August every year. This year's will occur in August at Central High School. So the shift, it has a number of hours, so you're there for a certain number of hours a day, and you're basically attached to one plot of land. So it would be, if I bid on the shift to be the crossing guard at Prairie Ave outside of Young Woods, where I was once the assistant principal, that's where I am. I can't be, Jay, you can elaborate on this, I can't be moved around from place to place.
Yeah, each corner is bid on as a full-time corner once they reach their probationary period. And then they own that corner until they either give it up or unsatisfactory or ask to leave, pretty much. So they, out of the 88 corners, they have 88 assignments. And then hopefully we have the 88 employees who bid on those and own those full-time. And then we have a bucket of subs that as they have personal days, they have sick days and things like that. And then we try to backfill at any given time if any of them are out. And as you can imagine, in the winter months, the attendance is a little trickier than when it's 80 degrees out in the morning at 5 a.m. So, so that's how the post, each job actually has an assignment. There's an assignment for each one. So.
I think what we'll do just for the flow tonight is let you present your notes and
Okay.
all the findings that you have there, and then we'll open it up for questions to the council.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Okay.
Okay, so currently we have 88 posts. 9 of those posts were not filled as of the 10th of, which is today's, was yesterday. We have 93 working guards right now. That includes 9 long-term subs and 7 per diem subs. So the long terms are the ones that hit the 60-day mark. We have 4 on leaves. We have 89 working. That's obviously a thin margin. You're staffing 88 places. You need perfect attendance every day. So absences, Jay and I had spoken that a little bit before, but it's unpredictable. Some days you might have 10 out, some days you might have 2 or 3 out. So it's, I think the last week or so we've been trending between 4 and 5 a day, but we did have a period of time where we had 11 out a day. We don't have really a rhyme or reason or trend behind that. The starting salary is at $14. The starting salary is at $13, and the once they're full time, they make $14.83 an hour, which right now with minimum wage, it's not necessarily competitive. They receive health, dental, vision. They're part of the city pension, or they're sorry, we own the pension after 60 days, and so that's per the 1033 contract. So our understanding is 5 personal days. Some of that is offset for holidays that occur during the time that they work, and they accrue 1.5 sick days per month. We mentioned per diem guards become long-term subs after 60 days, where they receive health care and union benefits. So I had a couple of things we've added here. PPSD took ownership of the crossing guards for the 2010-2011 school year. We don't have a lot of institutional history on that. Whoever ushered that in was not no longer here. Bidding happens in August, and the training to become the guard is 4 hours. The training is built into there. So the 4-hour training is a bare minimum, but our staff has to shadow another guard for a week. So there is a period of onboarding that's actually in excess to what is required. So understanding that, that in the past, when this was under public safety, traffic enforcement, ticketers would back up the crossing guards when they weren't available. We suspect that there might be a salary differential now or some reason why that can't happen anymore. We don't really have info on that. Check with the surrounding communities, Cranston, I believe it's a privatized effort, and Tucker or Cranston, they're run out of public safety, Providence is run out of the school department, as we discussed. The rest of the notes, just a list of where they are, where the guards are stationed. It's predominantly elementary schools. And again, the guards are attached to those spots. And the good news is, you know, from when we started looking at this info, we do have more guards than before. So we are staffed at most places now between the subs and the permanents. And just, you know, some issues why they might resign or move on to new jobs. It's an entry level job. So a lot of guards going to become teachers assistants. A lot of them resign. So pay is a determining factor. It's, again, it's not a lot of money. It's a non-traditional work schedule. The district, to support recruitment, has offered a $200 bonus for a month of perfect attendance. So if you're at your post every day for a month, you get extra $200. And there's a $250 referral bonus to any current employee who refers a crossing guard that's successfully hired and on board. So those are some of the barriers and retention strategies.
Dan, I think you missed one thing on your, unless I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. So who pays for these crossing guards?
I believe it comes out of local budget at the school department. So it's, PPST does pay for it.
Okay, and is there any reimbursement for any schools, charter schools, schools, any reimbursement at all?
I don't believe so. If Jay, you talked to that today.
Yeah, and I talked to the finance team, and they don't bill anybody for any of these posts, whether they be at parochial, charter schools or not.
Okay, all right, then I am going to open, thank you so much. This is a lot of information. I really appreciate your diligence in presenting this tonight. So I'm going to open it up for questions for the committee first. Councilor Andrew.
Thank you for all this information for being here tonight. I just had a few questions, and I'm grateful also for this long list of where they all are. When you said that crossing guard stations are, they cannot move per the contract, what contract? Is that the contract between PPSD and the crossing guard, or what contract are you referring to?
It's
It's at the bottom.
1033 contract, so agreement between the city of Providence and Rhode Island Laborers. This one, I can hand it.
Oh, no, I just, at the bottom, it just said for the contract, and I didn't know what contract.
Yeah,
It's
it's
for
a
laborers.
1033.
And then do we have contracts with, like, for the ones that aren't public schools, like the charters or the private schools? Is there some sort of contract where we've agreed to provide crossing guards to those folks? And how did that come about?
Seems like we inherited them as the schools have been there a long time, right? So in 2010 and 2011, that's what was in existing order. And we will make an amendment as schools change, right? We're closing a couple of schools, so those guys that are on those corners will be open to bid. As when I do cheap limits, and we'll come back online, Second Street will come back, especially on range, come back. Those type of things. So those people will be able to rebid, but it was an inherited thing that is kind of turned over hand over hand.
Okay.
And it's gone that way. And for the most part, our schools are pretty much all the same elementary location. So it's really been a pretty consistent thing unless a school shuts for a renovation or something.
Okay, but as new, like, I don't think any new private schools have started, but as new charters come on board, are we offering them, are we
I
offering?
think the
them
last
crossing
one was
guard
the Chief
services?
first came on, where we used to have Forts Elementary and we moved them over. So we do staff that corner. That was never done before, or we would have shut that corner down once we closed Fort, but we kept that open between Fort Elementary and Gilbert Stewart Middle School. For them as well.
And Achievement First doesn't pay us for that?
No.
And then I have one last question. Does PPSD set the pay for, because if the pay is what, I forget, is it $14? Is that set by PPSD or is that set through the union contract?
I'm pretty sure it's set by the contract. I have to, I perused it this morning. I did not see a pay scale in there, but I can verify that, I'll, for you, Councilwoman.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, need it is set by contract.
It is, okay, cool, thank you. Okay, I think those are my main.
Anyone else? Yes, Counselor Pacharo.
So when crossing guard doesn't show up, is there a supervisor that actually roams around and, or how do you monitor that? And how do you redeploy someone to that corner?
So.
You know, we received a couple, for example, out of the district, but if I come to calling me that for a couple of days, people haven't shown up. It's
So-
very evident.
If they follow the call-out process, and then they call into the supervisor, Rosanna Valente is the supervisor of the crossing guard, so she'll get up early in the morning, she'll see who she has to call, and maybe 5 vacancies, or let's just say there's 10 vacancies. We'll call the subs and try to appoint them to those closest corners to their houses, and then we get that. Eventually, we run out of subs to then notify, we run out of subs to fill the corners for the vacant call-outs or vacation days or sick days that are used, right? So what we do, Rosanna then puts out an email information that goes to every elementary school principal and now every middle school principal that goes out and says, unfortunately, we've exhausted all resources and these X amount of corners are gonna go, I don't have anybody to put in there. So a lot of times the school personnel will then, mostly the principals, will then make their way to that corner, providing they have the ability to do so, right? So, and then if it becomes a very busy corner, we've had to call the police a couple of times to come assist. So, and they've shown up, they've never said no, but they show up, but once again, it's after the fact, right? Or while it's going on, so there were a couple of things, so a wide variety, if someone pulls a no-show, then usually a principal will know who people are and where they belong, so when he or she comes to the work and doesn't see them, then it's a call to our office, and yes, Rosanna does travel. We also have another employee now who does a spot check, and it's both the same for the morning and for the afternoon arrival and dismissals. But once again, you would have to be notified. It's one of those things, if I don't have a call out, I'm assuming you are on your corner. Unless the school personnel tells me someone calls your office, you call us and notify us, then we end up sending someone out to kind of verify over a period of time. We don't just go out that day or ask why, we'll try it. If it's a one-off, we'll obviously try, but, and then we do a monitoring, just to verify whether or not the show stay for the whole shift. But we have 2 employees now that will go around and physically be at those locations.
And just to add to that, like, having been a building administrator, there are times when I've had to go out there and man the crossing guard post, and you can't always do it. Like, other things happen, parents show up at school for other issues, so we try to support what we can, but it's not always feasible to ask the building administrators and staff to do it.
Go ahead, Counselor Pacharo.
Just to be clear, the crossing guard is overseen by the school department
Yes.
and has a supervisor, manager, supervisor. And do you utilize any software to determine and see time and
No, because some
how
of the
many people
sites.
called in? Huh?
No, because some of the sites where crossing guard may show up, it's a little distance from a school, so I don't have any ability to see if they punched in that morning or anything to tell me whether or not they punched in. They may call in later or at a different time. So again, it's very difficult to have a location that I can then, a tracking mechanism to show me that Jimmy Scott punched in at 6:05 on this corner that starts at 6:15. And some of the schools aren't even open yet, so they wouldn't have access to the school to go into the time clock. So as of right now, no, we don't have a mechanism that allows me to just kind of like go online and see where all the buses are, right? They have a track and I can see where all 125 buses are. We don't have that ability now to have that.
So they have to go into the school, punch in, and then go out to their site.
Or they can call in from their phones. But once again, that doesn't generate a report. So me as the supervisor, I can't just go online and look and see if anybody's punched in. It kind of comes down to their time card at the end of the week, right? You see the punches or missed punches.
Sure.
Okay. Other committees? Oh, go ahead, Counselor
Quick
Sanchez.
question. So just from my understanding, this list of locations, it seems like we just have been inheriting them for like years and years. There's no like current metric we're using to see where there's more traffic at a time of day.
No, we do. So we actually do quite a few studies, and as I was talking a little bit earlier to James, it's kind of like an ebb and flow in a neighborhood that's established, they start out as elementary kids, right? And they have a lot of kids needing crossing guards, and then all of a sudden, they're the older groups, and now there's new families in another part. So yeah, we do those studies. If someone, we eventually send them around, if they're not really crossing, many will out to close those, but open another corner where that group, the new group is. This number's gonna stay the same. It may change from 2 at MLK, maybe to 3 at MLK, based on the amount of kids now that are walkers based on that location. Yeah, we do that on a regular basis, but it's never really a big sweeping change. It may be that corner where a bunch of kids used to cross no longer, so maybe they're crossing 1, 2 kids. We may say that we might find that another corner at another school, and that may become open. Yeah, we do that, but it's generally the same kind of areas. There's only so many crosswalks near the schools, and we can only go so far away.
Right.
So, and then we try to really double dip where we can utilize, if you're familiar with Springfield Street, right? So you have Carnivale at the end, but you get Del Sesto before you get to, what's that, Hartford Ave. So you got a guy there who's crossing, you know, the 6th grader from middle school, even though we don't provide middle school, really, we have a couple. But theoretically, we try to really maximize the most we can with what we have.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. This is really useful, informative information. Yeah, thank you. Well, just give a quick shout out to the crossing guards, because they're always doing the real deal work. Every time I'm driving to work, I always see them really smiling, really productive members of society. Thank you.
You're welcome. Counselor Royce or Counselor Peterson, would you like to ask any questions?
I just question, I'm really glad to just hear that we have the more vacancies filled. I just trying to wrap my head around this, maybe you both can help me. We have 93 working guards currently, 9 vacancies still to be filled, right? And 4 or 5, fluctuates on any given day, 4 or 5 guards call out. And so just pause it there for a second let's say you have 5 vacancies on that day, and then you're calling subs to kind of fill, step up and fill that for the day. How successful is that? So like on any given day when there's 5 folks who call out, on most days, would you say that you're able to get folks, those subs to fill in?
I would say the majority that they'll answer their phone, but there are plenty of days when you call the sub who, you're calling them at 4:45 in the morning, 5 o'clock, 5:15 a.m. They don't hear the phone. They don't answer the phone. So even though we have those numbers, that's what we have in the bank, they don't always answer the phone when it's available for them. So, but the majority do. But there are days that we start out, we have 9 subs and we have 10 call outs, and we call 9, maybe 4 of them are awake and can get to a corner. Or maybe something happens and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't, the corner you need me to cover is over by Martin Luther King, and I live up by, I live over on the other side of town. I can't get there in that time. I don't have transportation. So those, we find those struggles. So out of 9 subs, we really want to try to find that they can, as close to them as possible so they can get there without any obstacles. So yeah, we juggle all of those. Every morning you make a phone call, you don't know where you're gonna get on the other end. And I think we're pretty successful. People who want to do it, and if they're interested in getting the benefits and making a little more, they'll do it. But it's not always there. I couldn't tell you it's 100%. I don't think it's ever 100%. That's not my answers.
Sorry, Jay, could I
Oh,
just?
no, Counselor Royce, go right ahead.
So the worst case scenario, right? Like, let's say, next week when students return, if those subs aren't able to fill those positions, we'd have, maybe this isn't an accurate illustration, but we would have essentially 14 corners, worst case scenario, subs not able to fill in those 5 call outs. We would have essentially 14 corners not covered, worst case scenario on any given day.
Yeah, that's a high number. I don't think I've had many. That may be a one-off here and there. I think during the winter months, 10 could have been pretty regular. The weather's starting to get warmer. More people answer the phone. they were more apt to stand outside, so I think we're averaging four. I think
About
four
4 or 5.
or five is, we're getting into that trend, and we'll probably finish up the year, that's pretty much how it goes, right? So people are kind of done with that, and if we can get more subs in the stable, right, and then we can call them, because we do hiring all the time. Rosanna's at as many job fairs as possible, and we're trying to get as many. But we have so many vacancies that if you're willing to take that job, you may want that teacher vacancy job, or you may want another job, so.
Right.
You know, it's hard, it is the very first step in the door, and multiple times you can make a higher step in the door.
If you have anyone that wants to work as a sub, like, give them my cell phone number. I'll connect them with Rosanna and the team and make sure they get an interview.
Absolutely. This is not, I'm sorry, my breaking.
Go ahead.
Oh, what, this is not a question, but more of a comment. I think 1483 is so low, like I think to some extent, we need to professionalize the crossing guard profession, because it's a really important role. And so I would advocate for increasing that wage, so it's very lucrative in intolerable weather conditions. Who's gonna want to go out there in the winter for $14 an hour, I don't know too many people that would.
And not only that, by receiving sick time, vacation time, personal days, it gets used and they still would be paid, right? They get the sick time, they use it, and it's a day that it's ice, it's freezing rain outside at 5 a.m. It's dark, and nobody wants to go home and sick, you still get your pay. So you have that. I mean, there are times when it is not a very desirable job, even though I think it's, getting these young kids, elementary school kids safely to school. And, we all drive the streets of Providence, so at any given time, it gets a little busy. So yes, if it was up, if I had that magic wand, they know what they need to get to work. I think it's pretty universal, right? Everybody would
For sure.
want it.
And a lot of them do, use it as a career pathway, become a teacher's assistant, and a lot of our teachers assistants, some of our teacher assistants becoming teachers now through a new program we have. That's a different thing. So it is part of that career pathway, but obviously, council, as you said, like the salary is low for relative to the rest of the economy right now.
Councilor Peterson.
So mine isn't necessarily a question to you guys, and I want to thank you for doing all that. This was really in depth, but mine is more a comment to my fellow counselors with regards to the way that this is written. I'm extremely concerned about a public safety issue as it's posed currently. I only took a look at wards 14, 5, and 6, and I can tell you that in those 3 wards, there's 3 private schools, each having over 250 kids that attend those elementary schools. 2 of those particular private schools are on main streets, one of them being Mount Pleasant Ave, which we know from a few years back that a teacher passed because of crazy driving, traffic issues and concerns and things, and just a terrible accident in general. Out of all of these posts, 18 of them, are at private and charter schools. So, and again, the majority of these schools happen to be, or the majority of these posts happen to be at main streets. So I'm very concerned that as we have it written, it would pose an even bigger public safety issue, not only for the private schools, but for the charter schools and the other schools that, for instance, at Buckland Street, there's a couple of schools that are not only just the charter school there, but also the 2 public schools that the crossing guard covers. I took the liberty of talking to my crossing guard as I drop off my son every morning. And that this particular woman has been there since my daughter attended that school. So she was in 8th, 7th grade. So we're on 8, 9 years at this point in time. And one of the things that I asked was, I understand, we can understand that the pay is something that is not necessarily great. We can all agree on that. But outside of that, what is the concern? Like what can we do to to assist, to find more people to cover this job, because quite frankly, in my opinion, outside of teachers, it's probably one of the most important jobs that we have, that we need to have covered. And she said the issue is safety. The amount of pay for the continued safety concerns because of the traffic issues and violations that are consistently happening across every single street, never mind if it's a side street or a main street, is the issue why people don't want to be crossing guards. It is extremely important that we continue to address this as that safety issue. Our crossing guards in general are, if there's a shortage, there's a reason why. It's not just the pay. Public safety is a continued concern. And if we can agree on that as adults, imagine what it would happen to the kids. So I would love to make sure that you guys hear an opinion that's a little bit contrary. While I completely agree that we need to step up our salary and find ways to combat some of that safety issue. It's extremely concerning that we would leave 17 posts where, and these private schools that I just happened to give a phone call to, they're on the lower end of enrollment. So it would concern me. I would be extremely concerned about leaving 17 or 18 posts of private and charter school students having to fend for themselves when the majority of these are on main streets.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilor Peterson. Yes, Councilor Shannon.
Do you have a question?
Oh, you go first.
It's just more of a comment, in terms of, this resolution as written. In my opinion, I think we should have a crossing guard at every school, public, charter, private. I'm just gonna make the offer to the sponsor of this resolution. I think going forward, we should see if, we could create some sort of fee, for charter schools, private schools, to contribute to the greater good of crossing guards. I think would be the most responsible thing to do as a city. Or even just having written agreements on exactly what our relationship is with these institutions when it comes to crossing guards. Would probably be my comment, what I would like to see going forward.
Could I comment?
Yes, of course. Councilor Boreas.
So this resolution, I think, the language is very specific in that it doesn't mention charter schools, because my concern is not necessarily with charter schools because they're technically public. And so you won't see mention of charter schools in this resolution, only private schools. But I think to Councilor Peterson's point, all children are worthy of protection and safety in our city. I think what's challenging is that, I mean, from my perspective, there is this, it's multi-layered. I think if we are to recognize that our city streets are unsafe, then does it beg the question that then we ought to treat this as a public safety concern where we're extending our city's infrastructure to all students regardless of their associated school, right? So that's one question. Just like private businesses in the city benefit from city infrastructure. So should we extend that to private schools as well? That's a valid question. The second question for me is I think this kind of gets into territory for religious private schools. You know, this question of, you know, potentially violating, you know, separation of church and state. I think for me as a city councilor, I think, you know, we ought to have the responsibility to be good stewards of our public schools first, because we have jurisdiction over them, and that includes charter schools. I think it's tough though when, and I know you know, full transparency, Councilor Peterson and I have talked about this. Not all private schools are equal, right? And some lack the funding. You know, look at Moses Brown. I would bet that they are not facing any budget shortfalls. And yet we have crossing guards at Moses Brown, while we are lacking and struggling to keep crossing guards at at our public schools. So I would only say is, this resolution does not mention charter schools. It does mention private schools, and I do feel, I think this issue is so complex because many of our Providence students attend private schools. And there is, of course, an emotional attachment to this because we want all students to be protected. I think for me is for private schools that don't pay the property taxes, I would, at the bare minimum, ask for some type of reimbursement of the services we provide.
Okay, yes, Counselor Pachado.
Thank you. Couple of questions before I just make some comments. Digging deeper in terms of the FTEs, part-time, is it set at 90? Or is that, what,
No, this number,
how many?
oh,
Well, it's 88.
I don't know if there's a cap on the number of full-time employees, but as far as the subs, I know like this number is fluid. I've changed it 3 times in a week because we keep hiring subs. And those subs become LTS after 60 and so on, and they have a chance to bid on shifts the next year, if not to go back to some pool. So I don't know if there's a cap. I can get that answer for you, try to get back to you, Councilman.
There is a cap on total spots. There is 88 total spots. correct?
88 total spots.
Total spots.
And that's what's needed.
That's what I would need right now. Those are the jobs that we give out, 88 bid corners. We give them out to 88 full-time employees.
That's not including subs.
Not including subs, just.
And that's all the schools in the city of Providence.
That would cover everything. That
Everything.
would cover the Moses Brown, the Wheelers, to the private schools, the Catholic schools, all that.
Elementary.
And all of elementary.
When the kids are on vacation, like this week,
Mhm.
do the crossing guards get paid?
I don't know what their contracts stand.
I'd have to get back to you on that. I'd have to look into the contract on that. I do know they get comp days for certain holidays.
Yeah.
I can find that language and scan and send it over to you.
I just, in a sense, like my colleagues, I think it's an issue that of taking care of our kids all around, and it doesn't matter whether they're private schools or charter schools or public schools. But as we struggle to look at the budgets and how we're going to make sense of this and how the private school system continues to tread of funding it and adequately funding our teachers and also our crossing guards, I think that we definitely have to look at how best to upgrade in terms of the training, the awareness in our community. And one of the things that I think about is that, as I've seen in other communities, but also in some neighborhoods, it's also the issue with the public safety. That I've seen pretty much, in our neighborhoods where, and in these cases, been young people pretty much just kind of being on their phones or just, at a certain point, I just thought that was gonna hit a crossing guard. But it's, how does the school department talk to, engineering, the street traffic and putting some type of, whether it's the crossing bumps or speed bumps in those areas and doing it in a way that really provides that safety for people.
We do that pretty regularly. We just changed that Colorado. Now Kenyon Street used to not be an access point at all. Now that's open. We met with engineering out there. Where engineering was at Lima the other day. We're looking at trying to pull signs. Once COVID hit and a lot of people on the buses, the amount of kids who take their personal vehicles or they get rides to school now is the amount of kids who used to just get on a big yellow bus, pack them in, and it was a lot of control. The amount of personal vehicles that attend schools every day right now is higher than it's ever been. So a lot more kids are getting rides into school, parents are bringing them in, so therefore the traffic jams that it creates, that has created since COVID, has been astronomical. I'm going on year 7 now. And since COVID returned, the amount of personal cars in between the buses coming this way, people get annoyed, they get angry after a few minutes of waiting. It has caused, and it's been citywide.
Yeah.
You in the area, it is there because I get calls. Sergeant Wheeler and myself stop every year. We hit every single elementary school in the morning and almost do a detail in the morning with the police, with the crossing guards. But as it evolves and you're not there anymore, people take advantage of it. So I agree with you that it is citywide, no matter where the area is, but comes down to either people either not wanting to follow the signs or obey it or.
So thank you, and I want to thank Councilman Roya for putting this on, because it exposed an additional conversation that we have to really keep in mind as we look at the education versus the bottom line, the budgets, right? To help people that have to show up at 5:30 in the morning at every type of weather. And so I think that it's been very informative, and also I think that we can come up with some strategies or work with the school department and all of them, not just only the Providence public school system. I think that the Moses or the charter schools should come to the table and have this type of discussion, because we know that there's this competition, charter, private schools and public schools. They're not equal. We know that. And so for us to actually bring people to the table at this level, we can come up with some solutions.
Councilor Peterson.
2 points. One of them is a question, one of them is more of a comment. I sit and wonder, and not to put anybody on the spot or anything, but I wonder whether or not crossing guards should continue being under the school department. And I think that putting them back where they originally were, which was with public safety and the police department, might actually allow for us to expand upon certain things that we've already touched on here and ensure that those things are being addressed in terms of the safety issues, the safety concerns that the crossing guards have to face. Not saying that I'm not sure whether you guys are opposed or for it, but it just begs for the opportunity to consider that as an option, so that that way, taking it away from the public school department also allows for us to open it and make it for all schools. The second, well, I guess there were both points, not necessarily questions. But the second point that I wanted to make was based on the way that it's written as well. Within 60 days would not get us through the school year, and that is another cause of concern. Schools tend to go into the late teens, early 20s, for the month of June. And as it stands, we wouldn't fulfill the year. So again, going back to the safety issue that this would cause, should you guys be for it, we would be leaving 17 or 18 posts for an extended period of time. Once it gets to city council, that's the potential risk. And again, I want to just call out that that's a cause of concern.
Okay. Any more comments? I'm just trying to, Councilor Royce, and thank you very much. I mean, this was a very, very thorough and informative report. I think we're all, at least it's been interesting to me, and particularly when you assign your assignment spots, which is kind of interesting. So they're kind of shifting around, and so I think some of that may answer our questions as to whether there's some sort of inequity in terms of who's getting the crossing guards, because for me, it seems like it's purely a function of a spot, and if that spot's vacant. So I guess my question is where, now I'm asking Councilor Royce, how you would like us to take action on this resolution, because it seems to me that we've touched on so many things that aren't in it, in terms of, maybe studying, putting it back in public safety, talking about private schools reimbursing costs like that. I just don't know if you want to amend it, have us take action, bring it back to council, because this really typically resolutions can be passed on the floor.
Yeah.
And we were really pulling this in so we could do a little fact finding, and now that we have, I'm
Yeah.
wondering how you want us to proceed.
So I would, let me just be very clear. I think this intention of the resolution, so let me just answer your question. Let's bring it back or amend it, let's amend it.
Okay,
And because I think the 60-day passage part, I don't want it to scare any of my colleagues here, or quite frankly, families out there. My intention of this resolution was to not remove crossing guards from this school year. I think that would be inhumane. My personal preference would be that we begin to look at agreements with these private schools for next school year, giving them time, if we were to move forward on that, giving them time to come up with a plan, whether that's reimbursing the school department for some of these services, or themselves contracting out for a crossing guard. So if we have to amend the language on that, I'd be happy to. And so that's kind of my feeling for it.
okay, and now I'm gonna take comments on that, Councilor.
I hear you, and I think it's commendable. I think that if we, under the language, I don't know if it's amended, I know for the committee, is to like hold it for further study where you get the opportunity to look at the language, also perhaps talk to different individuals and make other recommendations. I think that the testimonial and the questioning and the information that we received is very important, and there were, and certain things were hit to bring people to the table to do more fact finding. And I think that it will be really a tremendous if allowed enough time, so that way in the new school year, we can really make certain recommendations and really have teeth within that resolution.
So we could continue it also, if
Right.
that's something you wanted to do, and hold it in committee. So we've got some options. Does anyone else have any comment? Yes.
Just to put it out there, the resolution is non-binding.
That's right.
So I think what you're looking for probably at some point, do an ordinance. to change it.
Yeah, I know this would
The
be
resolution means,
just an ask.
Hold on. Go ahead.
the resolution, as we know, is not binding, so you can put anything in there, but then nobody's really obligated to do that. Where if you did it in an ordinance form, then they have to, but that actually, you'd have to do more research and everything, to do that, especially making pay, because you're talking a contract that has to be adjusted. It's not the school department, it's 1033 that does how many people is there, how much money, so. Just my thought, it's a non-binding, we're talking a lot about a non-binding resolution.
Councilor Royce.
No, that's very true. This has no, I mean, for lack of a better word, sort of teeth to it, essentially, it's just, in my mind, this is just like a ask, so if this were to get passed tonight, out of committee, there's nothing holding PBSD accountable for actually moving forward with this, essentially, although I know they're great partners in getting our feedback. So this would essentially this is just a resolution. But that being said, if there's any concerns around the language, I'm happy to amend it and, go back to the drawing board on this.
Okay. Your preference. So would you like us to take action tonight, or none, or are you going to amend and bring it back to council?
Let's amend and bring it back. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And I guess we need to take an action on that.
We need to make a motion and to continue.
Yes.
So I make the motion to hold for continue until further development, and you can bring it back as the chair and have some language or more concrete. And then from that, you can build on to your ordinance. and take it to the appropriate committee.
Okay, so we have a
So-
motion to continue made by Counselor Pichardo,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. This was really quite an education. We appreciate it. Thank you, Counselor Royce, for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah.
And Counselor Peterson for all your work on this too. Thank you.
Tonight, it wasn't like a hearing, in a sense, we didn't know too much about the laws. We see them every day.
Item number 7.
Item number 7, discussion related to the upcoming budget hearings calendar.
Chief, I am so appreciative of all of you for staying for this. I wasn't sure that we were having, I thought we might have a committee discussion. Didn't even think that you guys would want to sit in on this discussion and participate in my apologies. My apologies.
Madam Chair, report information that we don't have.
Perfect, perfect. Welcome and thank you for staying, and I'm sorry it's taking so long.
Raise your right hand. You swear on the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Lawrence May, Chief Financial Officer.
So Lindbergh, Deputy Finance Director, Jay Coffey, and Sarah Silver, Finance.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So I'm just gonna start this off by saying I've been on the finance committee for 4 years and have never once seen a budget.
Are you serious?
I am serious. As a committee member, I will say that. So I'm just, my purpose tonight was to shed light on the committee calendar, discuss it so that we can make sure that it runs smoothly, and I really appreciate all your attendance. So I'm
So Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity for myself. It's so very responsible to be for this committee. We will be seeing a lot of each other, I'm sure, going forward as the budget is filed.
I
But
look forward to it.
Ms. Silveria and Ms. Lindbergh were tasked with their own responsibility of preparing some information this evening in conjunction with the work that's done regularly by your general work. And we do work in unison, we do work to coordinate the work of the council, the work of the administration. Timeliness is an important role in this process. And in prior years, there's been maybe some talk that, the finance department and administration works to get the budget completed in a rather efficient manner, but it really is about cash flow. It's to get the budget adopted with sensible and prudent decisions, but also in the end, it's important that we have an adopted budget so we can, in fact, send our taxpayers, which is 2/3 of the city's revenue. But from the beginning, Ms. Severa, I and Ms. Lindbergh have gathered our thoughts, and if I may say so, not because of the new members of this committee, but for all members, this is a process that is well in tune and well processed. Under the charter conditions, section 803, the mayor is required to file a budget by May 1. That is a clearly charter requirement. This year, Mayor Smiley will file his budget address on April 25th. Date that was selected and agreed upon, setting in motion the process from that point forward. And what normally happens in that month, I believe that budget address will be on a Tuesday. What normally happens, Madam Chair, again, this is not the finance department making up the schedule for the committee or the council, but normally what happens is the finance department will, once the budget is filed with the city council, either in special session as it's being called for or regular session, it is referred to this committee. And then this committee gives the opportunity for the finance directors and the chief financial officer to come before this committee to give a broad overview of the budget as was delivered by the mayor's budget agreements, covering items such as revenue and expenditures, and any items worth noting as a broad overview. From that point forward, the committee, as I always recall, and this document we shared this evening is a document that has found its place in finance floor, because we have to know what's the call of the committee, what will the chair and his or her members look for, what departments will be coming in during what week. And as you know, while you may or may not interview and vet every department budget, certainly the ones that require and demand your attention are the larger, whether it's public safety, police, fire, public works, or the larger size budget spend. You may have questions about contractual matters, so on and so forth.
And so through your efforts, we set a calendar that represents a fair and thorough examination of the budget process. We use documents that are well-known, that come into this committee, documents that were created by the 3 members of finance that were used regularly to analyze not just the budget under consideration, but the prior 3 years' history. And we even give you a review of the current year. Where do we stand right now in 2023 as we make decisions that will affect 2024? So with that said, that's the overall process. This calendar that you passed out this evening has been basically worked on. I believe to this point, the internal audit has worked with, at least at this point, the city's tax collector. They have worked regularly. The finance will certainly play a role in setting with the chair and members of this committee what evenings will be dedicated to what departments come before this committee. How many meetings will the chair and the committee ask to be held weekly as we move forward? The vast majority of the work will be done during the month of May. And again, while I said this earlier, it's not meant to rush this process. It's certainly not meant for the administration or the finance department directors to make up the mind of the council. But there is some prudence in making certain that we're efficient during the month of May to get as much of the work done as possible. Because the deliberations that ensue beyond presentation are important. There are mechanical, technical matters that must be done in order to set the levy, to set the tax bills, to print the bills, to have that process in motion. As an example, no budget can be adopted without a public hearing. The public hearing has to be noticed with 10 days notice in a publication of major circulation, hence in the city of Providence, that's the Providence Journal. The ad will appear on the first day, and then 10 days hence, the public hearing will be held. Committee, through your efforts, will decide what day or evening that will be. There'll be a public hearing. And while it may not attract a lot of public participation, it is a necessary first step in getting the budget underway and under consideration. Once that has been held, that's timed, many times that's timed right during the midst of the budget proceedings. It's not always has to be held at the beginning or at the end. It's meant for efficiency to hold a public hearing, put on record who is in favor of the budget process. In addition to that, we have to be mindful that there are several departments that are involved in posting the budget and having it ready for circulation, as well as the tax bills. They include, in addition to the finance department administration, the city collector, the city assessor, the city's IT department, and of course, our office. It is an integral and intricate process. We use an outside print house, financial printer, skilled in the process of taking the city's tax bills and overlaying information that has been decided upon based upon anticipated approval and actual approval of the adopted budget by the city council. What we normally would do is, as we move through the month of May and ideally complete all of those department hearings, much like you have put on this calendar before you. Practicality would be the guiding and governing force behind it. We then begin to look at when can we expect to get first and second passage to get a budget out to committee. First of all, get a budget out of committee, and then first and second passage to the city council. Take into consideration public posting, process of days between public meetings, 48-hour notice, and then with due respect, it is the ability of the finance department and the affiliates that work under our direction, tax assessor, city collector, to get those bills in the mail with a 30-day notice to taxpayers so that they have comfort when the bill arrives with due dates as follows. The due dates of your tax bills are July 24th, October 24th, January 24th, April 24th. But that first collection is key to the city's cash flow. 30% of the city's cash flow is collected in the month of July, sometimes in the month of August. We have seen, and then the chair and Taylor have seen where, for any reason, good, bad, or indifferent, a delay in the adoption of the budget can have a critical delay in the printing of tax bills. There are multiple communities in the state of Rhode Island that use the same financial printer. They queue up based upon your reservation, if you will, when you believe you think you'll have second passage. Why is that important? Because in case there's an amendment that makes a change at the council floor after first passage, while comfort can be given at first passage, and we've done that in prior years where we begin to instruct the IT department, stop to run tests and get the budget under what's called accounts receivable. There's no certainty like second passage. And so there could be some change on the floor. So to take that privilege,
we'd have to be absolutely certain that first passage will pave the way for second passage, and we could begin that process. But in many cases, it is upon adoption of second passage that the financial printers are given the instruction to print the bills. That's at least a 10-day turnaround time before they even put in the mail. And then the mailing can be 2 to 4 days, depending upon local delivery. The entire process can take up to 30 days. It's a critical process because the city's cash flow, while they're stable and while we consider ourselves to be in decent condition cash flow, it is that first cash flow of the year that's very important to the city, having closed out the fiscal year, pay our bills, and we seek to do that. So this process of the calendar is then that process devised by the committee in directing your affiliates, most notably the internal audit, working with the finance director, the deputy director, who's also the budget officer, myself, and our collector, to figure out the process of how you would begin this conversation with the clients. And again, we're not here to move your process out of the realm of discussion and review, but we're certainly here to advise that the process is expedient, it's prudent, and it needs to be informative, of course, but it also has to have a bearing on the ultimate adoption of not just a levy, but we would believe that best practices suggest that you would adopt a levy, which is the important instrument to put the bills in the mail, but also the companion appropriation instrument. While there have been instances in prior years, for whatever the reason may be, where a levy was adopted, most notably to get the bills in the mail, and then subsequently the appropriation ordinance was considered subsequent, we would tell you that based on best practices, we would advocate strongly to have all ordinances adopted in the same session, which would include the levy ordinance, the actual appropriation of spending, the compensation and classification ordinances, which are associated with personnel and the number of positions in the city, including the city budget. As I look at my notes, if all this went the way that I think it would go, and please understand, we're not suggesting that this is the calendar that you would include, but if you were here from this evening, knowing that in 2 weeks, in fact, the mayor will be giving his budget address, and if you have no other meeting that week, then instead bring the finance team and you do an overview the following week, hence the first week in May. The way we would see it is that you would probably, in the midst of that, we would have to seek formal approval of the tax levy, which is a process that's subject to approval by the state of Rhode Island. That process can have a turnaround time that takes at least between 2 days and 1 week. That process is a necessary step in order to inform your city clerk that the approval process, that the budget for the levy has remained on or below the cap set by law, which is a 4% cap. No revenue or tax levy can exceed 4% of the prior years without any exception that would be granted in state statute. So the Department of Finance, and the Department of Revenue, the state of Rhode Island will review that internally. When we've been cleared of that condition, then the city clerk's office can place the ad, and only then can we place the ad in the local newspaper. That ad, once placed, is given the ability to have a proof prepared and sent back to the city clerk. The city clerk shares that with finance, we prove it to make sure it's correct. It's actually the proposed budget and the levy notice that's given to the requirement by state statute, and then approves. From that process, and if the public hearing and the departmental hearings are held, for the most part through the month of May, based upon what I could expect, pardon me, I'm just giving you a suggestion. The timeline would be as follows. Working within this specific timeline of departments that you plan to call before you fulfill, but it would go as follows. The mayor's budget address would be on Tuesday, April 25th. Finance committee budget hearings, I would assume, Madam Chair, as a committee, would run between the 1st of May and the first week in June, probably by June 8th. That's 5 full weeks of committee hearings, even if you were to meet more than once a week. Again, I'm not suggesting that you will, but that's the committee's work. Once we lay it out between the finance affiliates, the administration, and your affiliates, through the general order, we'll have a pretty comprehensive schedule before this committee. The month of May will be a very active month for both administration and council. The work is done right here by the finance committee. Following that, the advertising for the Providence Journal for public hearings should be placed no later than May 22nd. It will appear in the Providence Journal on May 26th, and it has to be graced by 10 days. The public hearing could be held as early as June 6th, That would mean that the committee had already had almost a full month of May to conduct the departmental hearings. And it might just segue quite well that you had your department hearings, the public had an opportunity to view them here in person or maybe perhaps online, and will be better informed, so that if you're planning on making a appearance at a public hearing, that public hearing could happen on June 6th. If the public hearing is commensurate with the completion of the budget deliberations and your processes, it is possible that a budget could be voted out of committee on June 8th, with first passage sought on June 13th, followed by second passage on June 15th. At that junction, the city collector's office, working with the city's IT department, to prepare the bill files to be sent to the printer. That's a 5-day turnaround between June 16th and June 20th. The bills will be sent to the printer for processing between the 19th and the 23rd of June, and they will begin mailing somewhere in the week of June 30th, with the expectation of first quarter collections to be timely on July 24th. Again, Madam Chair, we submit this to you and your committee as a framework for guidance and hope that we could adhere to that. We'll do everything in our power as a finance team administration to assure you that we will be prepared. Departments will come before this committee. Madam Chair, yourself and Rita Taylor have, of course, seen that process on a number of occasions, but for the benefit of the new members, we pre-brief every department before they come before this committee. They have been given refreshed information. We have briefed them during the entire month of end of February and March before their budgets are considered acceptable to be included in the mayor's submission. Once that budget is filed by the mayor's proposed budget, when they're called before this committee, the finance team will work with them to be sure they're prepared, take all the necessary documents. And I often say this very often to departments, and I think you could appreciate this. When they come before this committee, ostensibly it's for budget review, which is carried by the finance team. There's no that knows numbers better than the finance team, but each department should know their own budget. But I do think it presents an opportunity for that department to talk about their administration and operation department. And likewise, it gives councilors the opportunity for the same reason. While you're here asking their budget questions, it also gives you the opportunity to say, let me ask you about this particular program. I think you'll find that department directors and their staffs are well-versed, well-prepared, and should make this process go well. And where it's not, then truth be told, the committee would have any reason to raise questions. On a number of occasions, you ask questions that the documents will not be available that evening, or for some reason the question was not anticipated, and we would say to the committee, to the chair, Madam Chair, we don't have the information this evening. We'll get that back to your internal audit as quickly as possible. Once the internal audit receives the information, is satisfied that the information did come as was attested, and report back to the committee chair and the committee that the finance team did secure necessary documents on behalf of Department X or Y or Z, and we have submitted that, all in an attempt to continue the process, to keep the process moving. So that's the broad overview of the departmental processes before this committee. Very important process. The calendar that you're distributing this evening is still, I think, a work in motion. The internal audit was not available today, but I think the discussions are already being scheduled to have her discuss further with Ms. Silveria and Ms. Limber, who, to their credit, they run the day-to-day management of the budget. That's the job that they do, in addition to their responsibilities in finance department and myself. But the day-to-day minuscule activity of everything that goes on in the city, every dollar that's spent, you won't get any better information than right here. So with that process, I'm sure that process will be well born, and I think you will find, particularly for your new members, I say that with due respect, that you'll find that the process works well, and we'll look forward to spend the entire month of May doing it.
Chief Mancini, I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate, you guys, all of the team. The team is an excellent team.
Thank you.
The only thing I did tweak this year, because I've been saying this for the past 4 years, was to have a second public hearing, which because in my opinion, there's never been really any transparency around the amendments to the budget, what they are, why they're there, the whole 9 yards. So I have worked a second public hearing into the calendar, which means that we would be moving the June on the 6th and the 8th on the calendar, those meetings into May, so that we can do all our department hearings in the month of May. So, which is gonna be a lot. So I just wanted to point that out because I really think it's important that we have that second public hearing. So that, with that said, I also had a personal scheduling conflict on the 2nd, so I was hoping that we could kick it off on the 1st and the 2nd. Work matter that I cannot do. So anyway, so I really appreciate your willingness to, it's gonna be a very, very heavy month, and as always, the presentations are thorough and we're gonna learn a lot. I really appreciate all of your efforts.
Thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. Mind if I ask one question and you guys 4 questions? I'll start with Cheryl. I know there's an ad for the first hearing, but I don't see the first hearing on our calendar.
The first hearing is actually on the 16th. What's under the 16th?
Oh,
It's
first
the
public
public hearing.
And then are we also doing these other activities that night?
We
Law
are,
licensing?
I'm just gonna say from experience, I will just say, the public hearing on the budget catches everyone by surprise. We never seem to have one, at least in the 4 years I've been here on the committee, we never seem to have much public testimony.
Okay.
And so, typically we have a few speakers and then we have time.
And then we just, okay.
So there'll be a meeting on the rise.
And then first, thank you guys so much. You're so, like, this is such an amazing team. So don't take that I have 4 questions as like, that wasn't totally complete, chief. The first question I have is, I know at the state level, the budget address is always the day after MLK Day. Is April 25th typical? This feels kind of late. And so I wasn't sure if that was because it's going to change over or if it's always pretty late. And we only have the month of May, or sometimes we have April and May.
Or whatever the district that I have, what in particular, since the charter was adopted in 1980. The requirement is that the mayor must follow budget within 60 days of the start of the fiscal year. That's why May 1 is the date that we use. We are different from the state for many reasons, mostly because the state is such a larger, more complex organization, as here to look before Jeff Summary, as Councilman the charter will test that the Senate and House Finance is working together, rush towards a June adoption. They need it as soon as they can, not because it's on a smaller scale, but it has always been that process. And in truth be told, it takes a great deal of work. In the last decade, and this is not saying that it wasn't that way before. In the last decade, so many things have changed in the world of finance, municipal finance, public finance, and budget. So many additional layers of reporting, all of which we're happy to do so because of transparency, but it adds to the work that we do, whether it's through a number of information that's associated with medical benefits, health insurance, business contracts, and all the like that we do, other revenue sources. So we do need at least a good month of our own to vet that budget department by department. Every department is required to give from the finance department this past month, going through the budget line by line by line in support of the submitted request. The finance team then takes that, assembles it, and uses it with the administration to be sure that they've been informed while they make their own to the submission of the administration's budget. So it's a process that I don't think it could be advanced any sooner. We begin this process in December, the budget workshop. And then we give the department 6 weeks to prepare their budget. And they do a very good job with that information over 6 weeks. There's some downtime, I think, with holidays and what have you, but for the most part, the first week of February, budgets are submitted. They are then reviewed internally by the finance team to make sure that the appropriate documents were submitted in the appropriate format, checking for accuracy and what have you. Then when we use the month of February, short month to do so, March is wholly devoted to the work that we'll do the same work when we appear before the finance committee. And so the departments, through the directors and their fiscal teams, are pretty well knowledgeable in everything about their department and their budget. So I don't see where it would allow for a quicker submission.
Okay. So it's never.
Therefore, longer review. I'm cognizant of the issue that we give longer review for the council review, but 5 weeks is a fair amount of time. If we started in May and we went through the middle of June, where we had some assurance that we're moving in the right direction to get at least second passage for bills that go to the mail.
Yeah.
I think you could accomplish a lot in 6 weeks, given everybody's schedule. And I'm sure your chair will probably determine whether or not you'll have to meet more than one meeting a week. We're used to that.
Yeah,
And the finance, there's no exceptions during the budget season. There's no exceptions. We're here to do what we have to do.
I did have 3 more questions, and also want to really validate how amazing this team is, and this team
Thank you.
is. And I can't imagine how much you guys are juggling, but, and I partly ran for council, so I could be on the finance committee, so this is, I'm very excited for the month of May, but, so if Richard said no, I'd be like, what? No, but, how far in advance for each of the, what is the general practice for each of these, like, different, we'll see police on May 9th. When might these, we'll get the whole budget, I know, after the mayor's address,
Yeah.
but will we, I assume there'll be, and I remember having participated for the
Yes.
sustainability office, there's like PowerPoints. How far in advance will we get
Few
those?
documents, I
Yeah.
refer to the finance.
And can it not be day of, I guess is what I'm asking.
So we will have a budget book for you that has the departments, department by department, detail of the past 3 years' actuals, the current budget, and the next year's proposed budget. I will say that we can't send that to the printer until the budget has been presented by the mayor, so we'll get those books to the printer that night, and hopefully have them by Monday. We have reached out to him to let him know that there's a quick turnaround, but they are pretty good books.
Can we get a PDF in the meantime?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we will get, what we usually do is get a list of documents that each department is required to submit based on discussions that the internal auditor will have with the committee. And we will get them to you the day before. We try to get it to you the day before, but it's a lot of work preparing.
Yeah.
And if I may, Councilman,
Oh, please.
through the chair, it is not uncommon, in fact, it's rather common that your internal auditor will prepare a series of questions in advance of our appearance before any given meeting night. And I think that we would have that with a 1 or 2 day turnaround, so that we could complete much of those answers, submit them back to the internal auditor, we'll share them with the committee, or represent them on the evening that we're appearing with that particular department. But they're generally questions that run the gamut from number of employee count, what's this, what's that. And we're happy to provide as much information beforehand as we can. It makes these sessions that much more informative. I think there's more value to counselors if they're seeing the information in advance. But as Mr. Ray, the turnaround time is rather hectic to get it done, and the print count to get it out. But we'll endeavor to do that.
And then I have, sorry. I'm almost done. I'll say the next
Obviously
two.
very excited about this. So.
Yeah, watch out, no, but, do we also get, and maybe this is more, I guess, a question for you, Chairwoman, do we also receive written testimony, or is the option only for verbal testimony in public hearings? Will people be sending in anything written?
I think they have I think
They have the right to
absolutely
do
have
so.
the right to do that written also.
And the hearings are
I
the only
will, and I
time,
will verify that with the clerk.
the hearings are the only time we receive verbal testimony, so not at the plethora
No,
of blue days.
we cannot accept public testimony. It's really at the discretion of the chair.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna say right now,
Yeah.
we are going to be very busy with council members who are all gonna be coming in and asking their questions.
Oh,
and
yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot to present, so.
Oh, no, it
so
wasn't
we
a-
are- Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
will definitely be, going, and that's why we're having a second
Yeah.
hearing too, so that people can, maybe, pay attention to what they want to pay attention to and then come back in.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, because I have my committee meeting tomorrow, and I imagine people are gonna ask that if you like.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, Councilor Pichard.
2 questions. Notice that the Department of Education is not here. Can you talk a little bit about that and why? Just for my own information. I didn't see.
You mean the Providence?
Private schools. Yeah. I mean,
So
the
with
education.
the intervention that occurred.
Yeah. Just for the record. you know,
Their budgets are no longer under the city's control, and therefore no longer under the city's approval process. And so while we have great interest in the budgets, and while we do our best and endeavor to manage, I should say, monitor where we can, because we do fund, we do an appropriation of 31 million a year. There is no legal hold over how that budget is prepared or how it's submitted to, in effect, RIDE school. But that's one reason why I waited. Previous to the intervention, that their budget is submitted simultaneously with the city budget. And they would be asked to come before the finance committee and they would give testimony. It is not unusual, I may say so, that an invitation still can be extended by the committee, to have officials of the school district, and we would welcome that. There is no competition there, we would welcome that, we have no objection to that. You might even assist in having them appear before the committee to give testimony to councils who want to ask questions that are pertinent to the city budget, or maybe pertinent to your concerns about education.
Thank you. And also, for the chair, you asked a lot of questions, so. That was great. That was great. No, that was great, because you, and, had a couple of others. But I know that we're always, especially the first year, crunch for time to pass this. Any room for getting hearings out in the community, like the budget for this type of thing? Yep, bringing the budget out to the community. Is that,
I
Is there
guess
any-
we can have a conversation about that offline, I think, and talk about it, but honestly, it is such a tight time.
Ask that question in the May.
Yeah.
Did
So,
you really
yeah,
wanna do that?
I mean, it's even hard to
It's okay.
compress this hearing schedule so that we can have a second public hearing. I don't know, I mean, I'm open to ideas, so maybe we can talk about that and see if we can brainstorm and see if there's some
Sure.
way we can do that. I'm happy to work with you on that. And this is just assuming, I'm gonna say, if we have to call people back, or there's, some
Yeah.
negotiations, or there's so many things that could go awry with this already. This is just kind of a template, but maybe we could talk about that. Let's come up with some ideas and maybe discuss it.
So something like I'm already like proactively thinking is that like I have a community meeting scheduled already for like May 15th. So like I'll talk about the budget to my constituents already.
I've been in character, we all do our communications, so I always, encourage people to attend. And the nice thing is if we put, I'm trying to have more transparency. If we have a agreed upon tentative schedule, we can put it out in our communities and say, hey, listen, pay attention to this, because you may have an interest in hearing what rec says or park says during their budget. So why don't you tune in on YouTube and make sure that you're there so that you can, listen to that presentation from that particular department. So I'd really like to get this somewhat finalized, or make it a tentative, but finalize it and get it out to our constituents to say, these are the dates. And so if you tune in, circle that in your calendar and tune in. And so I think it'd be nice to let people know who's coming in.
I'm gonna have one on the 24th. And the last one on the proposed hearing, budget hearing schedule. Since here FOP expires 6/30/2023. The tentative expires 6/30. Why are those important?
Those are notes that I believe, if this is prepared by the general, those are notes to give notice to councils that those items will most likely come up for consideration in addition to their budget.
Yeah.
The police contract expires at June 30. I think in an ideal world, finance would also advocate that contract, if in fact it can be negotiated, will be given consideration for passage by the city council, being the committee on finance, to be parallel and in sync with the adoption of the budget, because that would be the next change in wages, if there's a change in wages that starts July 1. So I think that's going to put there for your benefit to let you know that the FOP contract expires June 30, 2023. Local 1033 expires the following.
The note that 1033 expires 6/30/2022 is a little dated, so that did expire. We renewed it for a 3-year contract, so it will expire in 2025.
2025? So it's not 2023. Thank you. See, that's why I'm trying to pay attention. All right, thank you. I'm all set.
All right, great. Well, thank you for staying. I'm sorry we kept you so long, especially in like all the work we're going to be doing in May. But we are not having a meeting next Tuesday.
Oh, we have a meeting next Tuesday?
I don't think we have anything on our agenda, so we're resting.
You never rest.
Well, I mean, I just.
Lots to read.
I don't think we have anything to discuss, so, anyway, thank you so much and look forward to seeing you soon. Yes, of course.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Councilor Shardo, seconded by Councilor Bear. All in favor?
Aye.
Good, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're so bad.